Hi, I'm Jim Mahon. I teach at Williams in the Political Science Department and in the past in the Political Economy program. I'm going to talk about tutorials a little bit. The Williams tutorial is different from the Oxford tutorial, and it's special in a certain way. Two students get together and one of them will present something, usually in writing, often will then read it, and then after that's done the second student will then offer a response, and sometimes there'll be a rejoinder and rebuttal and so on after that. The idea there is to have the students become the center of the class experience. Now, for a professor teaching something like that, you could imagine what the challenges are. First of all, there are logistical ones. You have to get people together. You have to make sure the pairings are good. You also have to give that time for that to happen, and you also have to create a framework for all of this to happen in. So that means that there'll be a couple choices for people who set up tutorials. Many times with the Williams semester, where we have 12 weeks, people will do tutorials all the way through. But I don't do it that way, and I think it's an increasing number of my colleagues who don't do it that way. We will have a different class at the beginning and at the end. So at the beginning there will be a lecture, and at the end there will be a class where everybody gets together and we have a discussion class. So those two classes are really different. They're like the bookends. The lecture does two things. First of all, it allows you to give a base of knowledge to a group of people who are going to be doing a lot of the talking, and it also gives them a chance to get started on the reading where they don't have to be presenting something right away, and also to sort out their groups. It gives them another week for all that logistics to happen. Now, the discussion class at the end, and often then you'll have like a one-page paper due where people come and just basically talk through what they say in that paper. In between, that is, the meat and the sandwich, the traditional tutorial is where the students get together and the prof is on the side, sort of in the background, maybe playing referee. Now, here's the bigger problem for pedagogy for professors, is keeping our mouth shut, at least for the first 20 or 25 minutes. That's often the really hardest thing to do. And sometimes you'll have to intervene to, say, correct a matter of fact. If somebody's basing an entire argument on something that they've got historically wrong or empirically wrong, you've got to do something about that, because it'll create an obvious opening for somebody to criticize them, and then you don't want to spend the entire time on that criticism. Or if the tutorial partner fails to notice it, then you end up off on a very unproductive tangent. So sometimes that you do intervene like that. But more generally, you're biting your lip an awful lot. And that can get pretty painful. But the main thing to do is to figure out a way for the students to use that time that you're not talking productively. One way I have done it is to create an extensive syllabus that really introduces all the readings, so that they can kind of start out knowing the historical background, knowing some context about each of the writers and each of the writings that they've got. And maybe even putting in your syllabus some suggested questions that people could talk about, some of the things that might be tensions in the literature or obvious issues that are raised. Especially if you have polemics, you don't have to do much of that. But if you have straight up historical writing or political science, you may ask people to look at particular things. And then you basically then have to let silence happen sometimes too. There are going to be times when a person doesn't know what to say and is thinking, and you have to let people do that. That's one of the really hardest things to do, I think, for professors, because, you know, touch a button on us and we go 75 minutes, which is pretty tedious for most of the people we're related to. But this, I think, is a really important skill. You basically have to figure out a way to let silence happen when you know how to fill that silence, probably 10 times over, and let it happen and let somebody else use it productively, because you have to trust that the students really are thinking and that the silence is going to lead maybe to somebody turning something over in their mind and working it through a little bit more comprehensively than they might have done otherwise had you interrupted. So those are the most important, I think, most important challenges for your typical professor coming into this new format. But trust me, and trust anybody else who tells you about it, it really does work. Students who come to this really come out of it with a lot more learning having been done. They feel it. They feel the difference in how they are becoming expert and confident and sophisticated on a subject within a few weeks, and it really makes a difference. So it's worth it.